Hey guys, welcome to Henry and Caitlin YouTube channel.
You're gonna mess that up, weren't you?
Yeah, our YouTube channel, Henry and Caitlin. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you subscribe. Today we're going to discuss some topic that people often ask when they talk about interracial relationship or mixed culture. They always talk about, and that's the cultural differences.
Yeah.
People ask
what
you,
are the cultural differences and
yeah,
if they're an issue and that kind of stuff.
people often ask whether, isn't there a cultural difference? Or if someone want to marry from another culture or another race, people often would ask, you sure you guys can handle it? The cultural differences.
Cultural differences are huge, yeah.
So it's a big deal, right? So we want to see if there's any, how do I put it?
Huge conflicting cultural differences?
Sure, yeah. Perhaps.
There's not.
Why?
I think no matter, if you take apart, if you think about the fact that, I'm from Canada, you're from Nigeria. Obviously, Canadian culture, Nigerian culture differs a lot. But then when you look at the underlying meaning behind things, it's all the same. So like how, for example, we're both Christian. So how I celebrate Christmas in Canada involves snow and involves going to family and eating meals, but we have like turkey and stuffing and Christmas pudding, whereas in Nigeria there's no snow, but you go and you have meals with your family, but you eat pounded yam, and because so
We dance, yo.
yeah, you dance. But again, when you look at the base of what you do, Christmas time is meant for a celebration. You usually spend it with family. You usually eat a big meal together. The meal might differ a little bit, but again, that's where you can, when you're in an interracial marriage or relationship, that's where you start blending the cultures, because the underlining is the same thing, right? You want to celebrate, whatever you celebrate.
Yeah.
And, so maybe we want to serve turkey and pounded yam. Or maybe one Christmas we do more of like Canadian version, and the next Christmas we do more like a Nigerian meal. Or maybe at lunch we eat Nigerian, and at dinner we eat, more Canadian. So I think that's where you kind of just blend sometimes the cultural differences. I don't really think there's I don't think there's any huge cultural difference that you can't overcome or blend in a way. And it's not just when you look at race either.
Yeah, true. One thing I would like to add, or a couple of things I would like to add, when you talk about the cultural differences, of course, there are, but then culture is fluid, right? It's always a mix, because even within the same family, you can have different culture. Your cousin's culture could be a little bit different from yours. But when people are thinking about culture, thinking about this big thing somewhere that you need to measure up. But most of the time, the culture they're talking about is mostly what you talk about in your community or what kind of food you eat. And these are normal stuff. Imagine, I may be from Nigeria, but I went to Canada. So I lived in Canada. So living in Canada, I was literally part of the Canadian culture. Mm-hmm. I have to learn. So all of us that immigrated to Canada, to another country, you learn the culture. So it becomes a part of that culture.
Yeah, but you also don't get rid of your entire culture before you adapt and you bring things in.
Yeah, go with that. Well,
no, I'm just saying you adapt and you bring things in, right?
Yeah, so you emulate culture of people that you're there. You were in Nigeria. Yes. You have to eat Nigerian food. You have to do all this stuff. And so essentially, you learn the culture. So even if you're married or not, if you get to a place, you have to deal with culture itself. Yeah. Even if I'm married or not, if I'm in Canada, I have to deal with the Canadian culture. It's the same way with if you go to Nigeria. Yeah. Right? So it's not only that you have to marry before you deal with those things. And they're not big deal because we always learn to mix them up.
I think the other thing is that, it's funny enough, people only look at cultural differences when they can physically see we're different races.
Yeah, because very true.
Let's be real. If you, as a Nigerian, married a Black American, you have the same cultural differences that me and you have right now. Or let's say supposable cultural differences that me and you have. But because you are the same race, people wouldn't ask you that question. But it's like, no, because culture is based on, like you said, it's based on your family, it's based on the community you grew up. So here's the thing, you could literally have the same family. Even you and your siblings could technically have different cultures if one of you went to school, like university, and the other one didn't, or one's the oldest child and one's the youngest child. And that there's so many things that add into culture and your experiences in life that it is such a fluid thing that I don't really think there's ever a big like, oh my goodness, how do you deal with that? It's more of like, oh, that's interesting, learn about it. Can we adapt that into what we, our normal day-to-day living style and our cultures? Or is this kind of something that, we learned about, but it doesn't work for either one of us anymore in our family?
Yeah, because even in Nigeria, if you marry someone in Nigeria, there's so many tribes in Nigeria. Yes. The culture is so completely different. Exactly. I can marry someone from the next village, and our culture is so different.
You'd have just as many differences as me and you.
It's even now the age of social media that kind of blend Nigerian culture a bit, because now we learn that, oh yeah, these people eat pounded yam, oh I eat it too, so let's eat it. Oh yeah, you eat jollof rice, we eat it too, let's eat it. You like Afrobeat, let's do it. But any other thing is so different. If I leave northern Nigeria, go to eastern Nigeria and get married, I'll deal with the same problem that I'll deal with if I leave Nigeria and go to Sweden, go to Canada, go anywhere and get married.
Exactly,
same
right?
issues.
There can be the same differences, right? And I think that's the thing, is like, you don't need, at the end of the day too, when you're with anybody, no matter if it's the same race, we think the same culture or not, you can't focus or look at only the differences. You have to look at the similarities. Like my celebration, the Christmas example, or anything like that. Like when it comes to food, like you said, okay, you might eat rice and chicken, but how you cook rice and chicken and how I cook rice and chicken is slightly different. But why can't we either blend those two or just cook them both ways? Like today we're gonna have it my way, Thursday we'll have it your way. Like it's not a big, I don't know, I don't see.
Yeah, and it's true, because even growing up in my family, we have my grandfather, who is the head of the house. There's some meat that he didn't eat. He didn't like to eat. So when we're cooking, we cook his food different. One of my aunts too, she did not like one particular meal. She has to cook ours different. So you see that it's kind of like still you have personal preferences
too, right? Your personal preferences. So like your culture is also dictated by your personal preferences. And then when you have a child like this who is biracial, you give them the influence from both cultures as much as you can, and you create your own little like world, right?
Yeah.
And you find a way to blend it that works for your family, and there's no right or wrong way to do that, I don't think. I think as long as you're trying to kind of answer any of the kids, when they're older, answer any of their questions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think nowadays social media has even made it a bit easier for them, because we live here right now in Qatar. They can. It's not particularly going to lean towards Nigerian culture
or Canadian culture.
Mix it all up. Yeah,
that's the thing.
Mix it all up, and he can learn about those cultures.
Yeah,
either way, whether we teach him or not.
He's going to have three cultures. He's going to have our Canadian culture, his Nigerian culture, and the fact that he's growing up in Qatar. So he has three cultures that he's merging in together to make one. But even us, just as adults, we live in Qatar now, so our culture is going to change, right? If we move to a different country, our culture will change, because it's affected by your experiences, affected by where you live and what you can go and do, and
So to enter it, to end it.
Hold on, before we end it, we have to tell the funny story.
What funny story?
About tic-tac-toe.
I think what we can say. Just like we said earlier, there may be some differences, right? But it's not a big deal. You can blend it. But of course, you will find some little things that are there that you still deal with. Because we have been together for a while, but there are some little things that we still...
I think that's the thing. It's not the big stuff. It's not the big questions that you need to worry about. What gets you, though, is the funny little things. So, for example, the other day, we were talking about doing a TikTok video, and Henry had said, we need to do a game where one of us can win and lose, and I can't remember what it was, but we had to have like no materials or something. So I just kind of looked at him and I went, okay, well, let's just play tic-tac-toe. And he looked at me, and he's looking at me, and then he goes, what's tic-tac-toe? And I'm like, babe, you know what tic-tac-toe is? And he's like, no. I'm like, there's X's, there's O's, and then what did you say? I can't remember.
I don't know any tic-tac-toe, yo.
You're like, I don't know
never
tic tac
heard
toe,
that.
but you're like, oh wait, I know X's and O's, yeah.
I know, yeah,
And I
I've
was
seen
like,
people do that game.
yeah, you're like, oh, I
But I
played
don't know
that
a
game.
tic-tac-toe.
I was like, so what do you call it? And he goes, I don't know, X's and O's. And I was like, no. So then we were doing our research, we realized that because Nigeria is British, they called it knots and X's, or X's and knots, or something like that. Whereas in Canada, we call it tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things, like, that is, I guess, a cultural difference, a difference in between the language difference and what we use. But again, it was such a minor thing that, like, yeah, again, overall, we play the same game, we just call it something different. That's the difference.
Yeah. So
But we play
sometimes
the
you'll
same
find
thing.
us a little
And it was
differences,
hilarious.
which can happen even between anybody else living in a
Exactly.
different culture in Nigeria or anywhere the same. You can still find those differences, you know. So it's not a big deal if you're looking get married to anyone from a different culture. Don't let the culture
Enjoy the experience.
stop you, because I mean you can learn from each other. It actually exposes you to different things and you learn more.
Yeah.
You know. So, all right, thank you guys. Appreciate you for watching. Make sure you follow us. This is our Instagram right here, and we also have TikTok as well. h.kstory, h.kstory, and then this one h.k_story. This is our Instagram page right here. Thank you for calling. Make sure for following, for watching. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Yo, see you next time.